Yeah, welcome to the Backyard Professor Live. We are in the new year, January 4th. And so this gives us a chance to renew our spirits and our minds and get ready to get into the new year. And I can't think of a better way actually to do that than from King Arthur and Merlin's point of view as a renewal of determination to succeed in all of our quests that we undertake this year. So I am going to share some mythological ideas, some historical ideas, some moral ideas, and some very interesting mythic ideas on Arthur and Merlin, etc. Hey, Tim Rathbone, good to see you. Hey, comic stuff. Yes, comic stuff 50. I got these new glasses and I have the graduated lenses. And so I have to do this to see, but I had to get them because I couldn't read anymore. So, hey, scriptural context, how you doing? All right, so let's get on with King Arthur and Merlin. This is such a phenomenal subject. The cosmic significance, the philosophical significance, the historical grandeur of it all. I mean, this thing has everything. And then when you couple Merlin with King Arthur, you know, how the Arthurian cycle encodes a vision of cosmic order, sacred kingship, and the alignment between heaven and nature and us, human society. Arthur's not just a king, and Merlin is not just a wizard. They function as archetype nodes between the worlds. And this is what we need. This is what we want. Maybe this is part of the interest in the UFOs, because they too appear to be contact between the worlds, either us and the cosmos or us and our oceans. Contact between the worlds. It's a big subject. So, hey, welcome everybody. Good to see you. So, this idea of King Arthur and the sacred kingship and the cosmic order. Arthur represents the idea that right rule mirrors the structure of the cosmos itself. His reign is legitimized not merely because of who he is by blood, but by cosmic sanction. And there's your symbol, the sword in the stone. And I will explain that symbolism to you tonight. Justice, harmony, and fertility of the land. What do these depend on? Moral integrity of the king. When Arthur's realm fractures, the world itself is what decays. So this idea is known as the wounded kingdom motif, and we will talk about that. And not only the kingdom being wounded, but how do we heal that wound? This is an ancient mythic pattern. As the king goes, so goes the world. The significance of the sword and the stone is not about strength or destiny as fate. It is a cosmic legitimacy test for those who wish to take the test. See, what happens is this ritual reveals who is aligned with the moral order of the world. It has absolutely nothing to do with strength. It's all about alignment, proper alignment. And this, we can put this into our own lives as far as that goes. In the Arthurian cycle, the sword and the stone can be drawn by only one person. Not the strongest, not the noblest by blood. So, see, this isn't just an automatic inheritance either. No, that's not good enough. That doesn't work that way either. And it's not by the most ambitious either. Ambition will not get you that sword out of the stone, but the one in harmony with the deeper order. And this is an ancient mythical idea too, where authority is recognized not just by people around you, but by the actual cosmos. This is a huge authority that the king is taking responsibility for. That's what it's all about. And it cannot be seized by force. So the stone is the world, and the sword is authority. Symbolically, we can say that the stone is the enduring world. I mean, there's a reason it's in stone and not in a wooden tree, for instance, because stone, rock, is solidity, it's ground, it's foursquare, it represents law, it represents permanence, ideas like that. The sword is authority, it's judgment, it's kingship. It can symbolize action, of course, because it wields justice as well as mercy, interestingly enough. Power is bound to the world's moral structure. If the wrong person tries to rule, the world itself resists. This is the theme. And now there is a reason why Arthur succeeds. King Arthur draws the sword, not through intention, but innocence. You go, how does that work? Arthur is innocent? Yes, because he is not trying to become the king. He's not ambitious. And the ambitious cannot draw that sword. He acts without ambition, and his act is almost accidental. And this matters deeply because the cosmic kingship is granted to those not grasping for power. It's a direct inversion of tyrannical logic. Merlin's role and timing has nothing to do with magic as such. And yet you say, well, yeah, but he's the wizard. Yeah, he is the wizard. I can't get used to these glasses just yet. I'm going to have to read without them. Merlin himself does not empower the sword. That's not where the sword gets its power. He has to wait for the right time, you see. And this reflects the ancient star lore and the druidic timing, because we do go back to the druids with King Arthur and Merlin, without question, because kingship emerges when cycles of the cosmos all line up as well. See, this is teaching us that history has thresholds, that premature rule is illegitimate, and Merlin is the keeper of the moment. See, the wizard of time, he's the keeper of the moment. He's not the cause of the moment, but it's very important that he aligns the king correctly with the cosmic order as well. And so what this presents is lawful kingship versus conquest. The sword in the stone establishes the right to rule before Arthur ever wages war. Later swords prove competence. This sword proves legitimacy, and that distinction is crucial as well, because conquest answers who can rule, while the stone answers who should rule, right? So is it Excalibur? And this is kind of an important nuance here, because in the traditions, there are differences. Some versions say the sword in the stone is Excalibur. Other versions say Excalibur is received later from the Lady of the Lake. Interesting. Either way, however, we understand the stone moment always marks the theme of recognition, not empowerment. So this cosmos acknowledges Arthur before magic arms enhance him. And that's the key. And the real juice here is, what is the cosmic meaning of all this, right? The Sword and the Stone dramatizes a universal mythic truth. True authority cannot be taken. It must be received when the world is ready. And it does resist modern meritocracy. It resists divine right tyranny. It also resists raw force legitimacy. Instead, it asserts moral resonance as the basis of power. And so the sword and the stone signifies cosmic legitimacy. The moment when authority reveals itself to the one aligned with the world's moral order, so even Arthur knows his stance, his authority, his responsibility to himself, to his family, to his group, to the kingdom, to the world, to the cosmos. This is really big. Now, every chosen king myth encodes these 5 main elements. That would be a blocked authority. And the symbols here see is the stone, the anvil, the seal, the omen. And the second one is a public test that no one can fake. Okay. And the third one is a morally aligned candidate. It often humble or hidden candidate. There is a cosmic confirmation, earth, heaven, gods respond, etc. The kingship is revealed. It's not conquered. And that's a big theme in this ancient mythic pattern that Arthur fits so well. Arthur's sword is one local expression of this more or less universal grammar of the kingship. And in Britain, Arthur is the recognition by the world. So we have King Arthur, the sword and the stone. Now, the signal here is the world releases authority to the rightful ruler. He does not get his authority from his bloodline or from someone else's permission. It is the world itself that gives him the authority to rule righteously over the world, right? That is what is so important. Kingship must harmonize with the land's moral order. So in Greece, we find Theseus as the proof of the true lineage. And this is an interesting parallel with Theseus. Aegeus hides the sword and the sandals beneath the stone. Only the true son can lift it. So we recognize this same basic stone and sword and authority theme. And the signal is strength and identity and destiny converge. And the meaning is the rule is legitimate when the bloodline as well as virtue line up together. It's revealed by a test. In China, we get this subject that we learn is called the mandate of heaven. And this also is moral resonance as such. The mandate of heaven is there isn't any object to pull in this, but the heaven responds through prosperity and heavenly omens and justice. Heaven lets go of one ruler and endorses another one is the theme of how this works, meaning that the authority persists only while moral harmony persists, and that's how it's done in China. In Japan, you get the imperial regalia. This is the sacred continuity, that imperial regalia in Japan with the 3 gifts, the sword, the mirror, and the jewel. These are symbols that are received. They are not won. And so the legitimacy is inherited through sacred trust in Japan. The rulership is custodianship of cosmic order, is what this particular inflection of the myth means in Japan. In Mesopotamia, the way they do it is divine selection. And this is why in Mesopotamia, kingship descends and this is kind of interesting with the Sumerian kingship, it descends from heaven, and the omens confirm the chosen king. The gods appoint. The meaning is rule is a divine office from the gods themselves. It's not a human achievement. Kind of interesting. When we turn our gaze to ancient Israel, we find King David. He is chosen from the margins of the society. Very interesting. He's anointed at the same time as being overlooked. And what legitimizes him is the later proven by deeds. God chooses the unlikely from the Israelite point of view. Authority rests on heart alignment, not status. And so this is another way where they show the kingship is not a human ambitious undertaking. So in the Norse world, you have a sacred lineage and fate as well. Yngvi Freyr, the royal line descends from divine ancestors. The kingship flows through a sacred genealogy. So the rulers are stewards of cosmic fertility and order in the Norse one. Now, what the sword specifically adds, which is interesting, because many myths say the gods choose. We've seen that, right? So Arthur's sword says the world itself agrees with that choice. So the stone is the enduring order of reality, right? That's a good symbol for the stone. The sword is the authority and judgment. That's another good symbol. The release is because the alignment is achieved between the person receiving the sword from the stone and the alignment with the world and the cosmos of the moral righteous order. And so its legitimacy, the meaning of this particular mythic idea is the legitimacy is felt by the cosmos. It's not merely declared by people on earth, right? So it's a much bigger, grander affair than we normally would think. So the deep unity here, and here is where the juice is, no doubt. Across the cultures, the chosen king myth insists on this one truth: the power that is not recognized by the deeper order will not hold. And that makes perfect sense. Whether the sign is a sword or a stone or an omen, whether you think it's from heaven's favor, the message is identical. True authority is received when moral alignment unlocks the world. That's kind of an interesting image, isn't it? The world now is unlocked to the king who, because he is morally aligned, jives with the world. He blends, he works with the world in cooperation. And that is why the people can trust that his judgment is going to be the proper blend of mercy and truth and justice. That makes beautiful sense, doesn't it? So, to put all of this down into just one sentence, the sword and the stone is the Western emblem of a global chosen king myth where authority is not seized, but it's actually released by the cosmos when the ruler, the land, and the moral order finally align. Now that is really kind of a cool image. It really is. It'd be nice if we could somehow reincorporate that with our current world leaders, wouldn't it? All over the world. Everything seems to be tipsy, topsy-turvy now. Well, so this will naturally lead us to Merlin because of the significant symbolism that Merlin, as the magician of the court of King Arthur, embodies. He is the axis mundi, the spiritual, the supernatural bridge that connects Arthur and his court and his authority and his rule with the cosmos. Merlin would be that axis, that ladder, as it were. And I've done videos on this before, so it's really important to understand the idea of the ancient axis mundi. For the shamans, it was the pine trees that they would climb up to get to heaven, receive heaven's gifts and knowledge and understanding and power, and then climb back down the tree and bring it down to earth. That's the theme with Merlin. And it is why he's a wizard, not because he does hocus pocus and magic as such, but because he is connecting the divine to the mundane. And that is what gives legitimacy to all of the crops and plants. It keeps the water clean, it keeps the earth uncontaminated, etc. That's the importance of that axis mundi. He is the liminal figure that brings the light of heaven down to the earth. He's part human, he's part otherworldly. This is the one who stands in between the pagan and the Christian worlds, right? This is the one who stands in between the past and the future, which, because he is a cosmic pole, a ladder, a tree, whatever you want to call it, prophecy now is potentially possible through the wizard, because he has the wider, broader context of the cosmos that he can bring down to earth. So nature and civilization, as it were, chaos and order. See, cosmically, Merlin is going to function as this axis mundi, the vertical pillar which connects the realms. So it's not like he's ruling. He doesn't rule. That's the king's office, right? So his office is more that he orients. The idea here is he works at aligning human history with a deeper cosmic rhythm, and then he steps aside. That's the whole idea here. So when we get to Camelot, see, we've done the individuals, the king and the wizard, his right-hand man, and what they represent. So the city itself, Camelot, is the actual microcosm here on earth of the entire cosmos. And they live on this earthly aspect of the cosmos. So that's why it's not merely just a court. No, it's much more than that. It's a model of the ideal cosmic harmony. See, the round table, the idea of the round table, and everybody sits at their place around the table and nobody is left out, and they're all facing each other so that they can converse and hear each other and work together to maintain law, goodness, what needs to be done, what part of the kingdom is weak, where can we grow more food at, where in the land are the materials so that we can build safe houses, etc. In a round arrangement, it helps them harmonize their physical needs with their spiritual needs. That's why the round table is not just a gimmick or just an obvious symbol. No, it's a very special chosen symbol. Equality, unity. And of course, everyone says this. The round of the table would symbolize the cosmic zodiac because, of course, you're bringing the cosmos down to earth, right? And so that makes sense too. It's the wholeness of the world is this idea. No one on a round table is actually at the head of the table because it's not about hierarchy, it's about unity. And that's why it's so fundamental to be round. It's sustained only by virtue. It's a fragile harmony is what they've got. So Camelot is what the universe could look like if humans lived in alignment with truth. That's the idea. And then we get that magnificent symbol of the Holy Grail, which in the large picture, because of course the humans, people don't always stay healthy. You're going to get ill. For instance, right now there's a really bad strain of flu going around, at least in the United States. It's a pretty rough strain of flu. So I mean, you have health to consider. And so this theme of the Holy Grail represents wholeness, healing, and restoration. It restores things. It implicitly has cosmic stakes. It heals the wounded king, and it restores the land back to productivity. Because when the king is sick or afflicted with wounds, that reflects onto the land. And so you must heal the king. You must heal the land as well. It represents divine life, immortality, something like a transcendent order that enters history, because we are a smaller part of a much bigger whole. And so that's what all these symbols are teaching the civilization here down on earth. And only the pure can approach it. It's not about the powerful, it's about the pure. So what this does is it transforms the King Arthurian legend from political myth into cosmic drama. It's the restoration of creation itself. So the once and future king is all about time and eternity. Arthur's promised return is not about nostalgia. It is eschatological. He sleeps outside of ordinary time. He returns when the world again needs realignment, so he should be back any time now, I would suggest. This places Arthur in the same mythic category as figures who anchor cyclical time, right? Like the Buddha. Arthur is a cosmic placeholder in this sense. He's not a historic endpoint. There are more virtuous kings, rulers, leaders than just one, right? So why does this still resonate with us? Well, the idea here is Arthur and Merlin endure because they encode a timeless question that is always to be asked. What happens when human power aligns or fails to align with the deeper order of reality? That's the juice right there, right? So Arthur is the cosmic king whose justice maintains the world. Merlin is the cosmic mediator who aligns time and nature and destiny. And together, you put those together, and they dramatize the fragile harmony between humanity and the universe. We can trace Merlin back to the Celtic Druids and to star lore. And what that reveals to us is he's not actually originally a court wizard at all, but the literary fossil of a cosmic priest seer. And of course, they're shaped by astronomy and prophecy and the wild intelligence of the natural world. That's why Merlin is such a fascinating character in the Arthurian legends. He was the wild seer. The earliest Merlin figure is not Arthur's advisor, but he's the wild man. He's a northern British prophetic figure, and this goes back to about the 6th century tradition. So this is a bit before even Charlemagne got on the History Channel, as it were. He's a few centuries yet out. He's driven mad after battle. He lives in forests and he speaks in riddles, visions, cosmic imagery. He sees time as layered, not necessarily linear. And so what this does is we now see that the placement of Merlin is in the Celtic Druidic archetype. He's a truth speaker who has been expelled from society, but closer to the deeper order of the world. And so he is equally at home out in the wild. And so this is fascinating. So being in the wild, coming from the Druidic tradition, we know there's going to be astronomy involved. The great stone circles all over the place in the ancient world. So he's not just a priest. The classical sources like Caesar describes the Druids as judges and philosophers, masters of memory. They had an incredible oral cosmology teaching that they shared with peoples. They were deeply concerned with the cycles of time and the movement of the stars above their heads. They studied movements of planets and stars, seasonal gates, which of course we know as the solstices and the equinoxes, which we still, right now, keep track of, properly so. There's long cycles that govern the kingship, fertility, and actual fate, according to the Druidic seers. Well, I mean, Merlin inherits this role almost intact. He reads the sky in order to interpret history and the legacy of King Arthur, right? So when we get to star lore, we begin to see this notion of prophecy show up. Because now that we understand the movement of the stars, we can calculate them back into the past, which means we can also calculate them forward into the future. And so we can begin to predict fates of people and nations that are lined up with the stars. And so this notion of prophecy arises. It's very astral language. This is the idea. Very interesting. Falling stars, was a warning. The king is fallen. A king in a far off land has fallen. We saw his star falling. And this is exactly the theme in Isaiah in the Old Testament. I believe it's 14, 12, 14, something like that, where he says, I saw Lucifer fall and I saw his star fall from heaven. This is that ancient Druidic idea that the Israelites were well aware of. So the shifting constellations would be recognized as a changing of power because the sky does not stay still. Some of the constellations at a particular time of the year are at the zenith, at their height, and full power. But later on in the year, they actually disappear below the horizon, and so that power wanes. It goes weaker and weaker and weaker. And if those constellations actually go beneath the horizon, disappearing out of sight, the power actually ends. So you can see how they utilize the sky to come up with these ideas. It's very, you have the idea of cosmic upheaval and war in heaven because the various constellations are moving around and they are jockeying for position. And then you see these meteorites and these falling stars. The night sky was wild with cosmological significance for these people. And this is the moral collapse on earth that we witness. And this is the ancient worldview. So what happens in the heavens is echoed on the land where we are. So Merlin does not predict events as such. He's basically the cosmic weatherman. That's one way to put it, right? He is predicting the weather. And it's very important. People really did recognize this as very serious, and so they paid attention, right? Well, this is Taliesin and the shape-shifting mind, right? Merlin overlaps strongly with Taliesin, the legendary Welsh bard. Claims to have been many things: animal, flame, drop of rain, a star. He possesses memory beyond one lifetime. He speaks in riddles that collapse the past, the present, and the future. He's a very interesting bard here. And this is what the shamans recognize as a cosmic consciousness in Taliesin. And this was not a metaphor. Merlin's transformations, his various disguises, he even had prophetic riddles. These come from the bardic druidic tradition where identity is fluid and time is spiral shaped. So, and then this brings in these stone circles all over Earth and the axis of heaven. Merlin is famously linked to Stonehenge in later legend, without question. And that's not random. Stone circles functions as calendar instruments, as we all know by now. Sky-earth alignment machines, ritual centers where cosmic order was measured. I mean, Krupp has lots of books on that. E.C. Krupp and Linda Sheely from the Maya Cosmos in Mesoamerica talked about this. It's all over the place. Cosmic order was measured. His role as the builder marks him as the keeper of the celestial architecture, one who knows where heaven touches earth. He knew all of those power points on the earth where heaven touches earth. So he knows architecture. This is celestial architecture on the land, so he knows where that happens. Now, there is a Christianization without erasing all this. When the later medieval writers reframed Merlin, because they had to, because you can't let paganism overrule your own beloved religion, right? But you can't get rid of it because absolutely everybody knew about it. So what you do is you reframe it. You turn Arthur from a wizard to being born of a demon, but he is redeemed by baptism, you see. So you create a problem and then you solve it, right? He's serving a Christian king now. He is subordinated to divine providence in the reframing, but that doesn't make the older layer disappear at all. They recognize that his wisdom is still older than Christianity. His power comes from nature and the stars, not scripture, because scripture is the latecomer. They recognize that. He ultimately withdraws, though. Remember the story where he gets trapped in the tree. And sometimes it's cave, sometimes it's in a crystal, etc. But he does get trapped. And this is the fate of the pagan cosmic wisdom in a Christianized world. It is preserved, but it is sealed, and so you don't have access to it. That's how they took care of that. So Merlin's true function on the cosmic level is not a magician who changes reality. No, he's the one who knows when the time is right. He's the one who aligns human action with cosmic cycles. He's the one who initiates kings, and then he disappears. If you keep the court wizard to take care of all of your enemies or help you make friends, you as the king don't learn how to properly rule. So it is not out of ego that the wizard aligns the king, sets up the king, helps the king get established in his realm, and then he leaves. That's the point. He's the keeper of the threshold, not the keeper of the castle, right? He is between ages. He is between different kings and worlds. He is not to inhabit them. So, and that's the core insight. This is really interesting because so he descends from the Celtic Druids, and they, of course, read the stars and the seasons and the living land. And this is as a single symbolic system. So his magic is actually cosmological. He grabs the cosmological meaning and brings it down to earth. Arthur's kingdom rises not because Merlin controls fate, no, but because he recognizes when the cosmos permits the alignment, which empowers the king, and when it does not, which is when he comes and counsels the king, hold, do not do this action or that action or that action, but do this because it's aligned correctly. And so that's how those two interact. And he does have prophetic madness. There's no question about that, because sometimes if something doesn't align and the king really, 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 really wants to do that action, but the wizard says you can't, it's not aligned, it could cost you your life, oh, you're just mad. Your prophecy is false. And if the king goes against that prophecy, he usually loses his life or an arm or a leg, or he goes mad or whatever, or he loses his kingdom. So, and that is so interesting. Now, this is the ancient Celtic science of cosmic cycles, preserving the belief that kingship and history and morality have to align with the rhythms of the heavens, or there is nothing but chaos on earth, right? And so that's why it's a clean literary lineage, and it's how Merlin evolves into Gandalf in J.R.R. Tolkien's works. It's not by imitation, but by refinement and moral deepening. So the archetypal seed, though, is Merlin, the druidic seed, wild, prophetic, star literate, and liminal. His core traits is he knows the right time rather than forcing outcomes. He does not do that. He mediates between cosmic order and human history. He imitates kings, initiates kings, and then he leaves. And he speaks in riddles, and his power is indirect. So Merlin's wisdom is cosmological. Odin the Wanderer is kind of the northern counterpart to Merlin. Perhaps that's why we know more about Odin than we otherwise would have, right? And he was a wanderer as well. Old man, cloak, staff, white hat, just exactly like Gandalf is depicted in the movies, because that's who Tolkien took Gandalf to look like, Odin. Truly, he's the keeper of hidden knowledge. He tests mortals rather than ruling them, and he sacrifices power in order to maintain his wisdom. And that sharpens this archetype. Wisdom is gained through restraint and suffering, and that's how Odin did it. And that's Tolkien's alchemy with Gandalf. So he keeps the wanderer teacher, the indirect guide, the guardian of timing, the refusal to dominate. But what he does take out in Gandalf is the manipulative prophecy, the moral ambiguity, and the pagan cosmology that is detached from ethics. Gandalf is not a seer who is guessing fate. He is a moral steward serving a higher order. That's how Tolkien wanted to present him. So we go from prophecy to providence, and that's the crucial evolution. With Merlin, he reads the stars. Gandalf trusts providence. Merlin predicts outcomes. Gandalf responds faithfully. See the difference there? Merlin engineers kingship. Gandalf tests character. Way different, right? Merlin withdraws mysteriously. Gandalf actually sacrifices himself. So Gandalf's famous line, all we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given us. See, this is Merlin's time knowledge redeemed into moral choice. Tolkien was very, very brilliant here with that. So what he essentially did is he redefined power with Gandalf. Merlin's power was cosmic literacy. Gandalf's power is moral restraint. Gandalf can dominate, but he refuses. He will not take the ring. He does not rule anybody. And he empowers the small, the weak. This is a wizard archetype. After Christianity has fully integrated it, power exists to serve freedom, not take it away, not destiny. So the deep pattern, Merlin, we have Odin, we have Gandalf. It traces a civilizational shift, as it were. We go from the cosmic determinism to the mythic wisdom of the wizards, to the ethical responsibility under providence. And Gandalf is what Merlin becomes when wisdom is subordinated to goodness instead of the cosmological prophecy. So, in essence, Merlin becomes Gandalf when Star-Lord gives way to moral providence. That's it. When the wizard stops reading fate, and what he does instead of reading fate in the stars is he serves freedom, timing, and mercy, and mapping the Grail myth onto the cosmic renewal myths worldwide reveals that it isn't a Christian oddity. It's a universal restoration pattern that is really interesting to see, because when the world is wounded, which does happen often, a sacred vessel of life restores alignment between heaven, the land, and humanity. And that alignment is very, very crucial. And this is the Grail pattern, which is really cool because it functions as a vehicle of the divine life. You know, it's the healer of the wounded king. It is the restorer of the wasteland. This is T.S. Eliot's famous essay on the wasteland. It is accessible only through moral purification because the land has become morally filthy. And so it must be cleansed through the Grail of restoration. So in Egypt, see, it's not a quest for power, though. What they're trying to do is restore a particular order that elevates everyone. It heals the land and it elevates humanity is what it does. And in Egypt, we see this myth in the myth of Osiris. He is dismembered, killed, dismembered, and then he is brought back together. Now, this is very interesting because while he is dismembered, you know, he's got a leg over there, an arm over there, a head over there, the land itself withers and begins to die. So Isis realizes, oh man, we're all in this together, but we're all going to die unless we can reassemble the king. If we can heal this king, this god, then that will affect the land. And so they reassemble it. He is ritually restored. And that's when the land gets fertile again and it begins to green up and produce its fruits and goodies. And in the process, the kingship itself is renewed through the sacred rites. See, Osiris's body could represent the Grail. And the Nile flooding, every year annually, the Nile flooded, is the Grail healing the land. Because without that Nile flooding, man, they don't get to grow their grains. The land does not become fertile. That is the deity's sperm fertilizing the land all over the place so that goodness can come forward. They had that symbolism down pat. Same thing with this Holy Grail. It is the cosmos itself must reassemble in order for life to continue onward. We find the same thing in India with Amrita and the churning cosmos. Amrita, the gods and the demons churn the cosmic ocean. Hamlet's Mill talks about this a lot. Santayana and von der Schend talk about this in Hamlet's Mill. They churn the cosmic ocean, and from this chaos emerges Amrita, which means immortal life, and only the worthy are able to receive Amrita. So the Grail is distilled immortality in that myth, right? The quest is the cosmic churning, and the unworthy are those blinded by desire. You remember the Buddha says there's ways to conquer desire. There's ways to let go of suffering by stopping your desire. Interesting idea here. Renewal comes from right participation in the cosmic struggle. That's how they talked about that. In the Celtic world, we also get this cauldron of plenty. A very ancient, powerful, huge image. The cauldron of Dagda. The bottomless nourishment it just forever produced. Fruit, food, goods, delicious wines and liquids, etc. Non-stop. It was the cauldron of plenty. It restores the warriors for their future upcoming battles. It is the symbol of sovereign abundance. This is the Grail, because basically it did come from this Celtic cauldron. I've got a huge book on this, on the Grail. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah. This is a fantastic, phenomenal book here, The Sources of the Grail. And it's huge, man. It's 600 pages. It's got all kinds of sumptuous goodies by John Matthews. If you can get that book, that's a Lulu to get. That is a fabulous read. Well, this takes it back to the Celtic cauldron of plenty, Dagda. It moralizes it. What this means is plenty becomes purity dependent. And this is the Grail's direct mythic ancestor. Europe gives us the dying and rising king, the corn king. And you get this out of James Fraser. The king is wounded or he's sacrificed, and then the land becomes barren because of it. But the renewal follows, ritual restoration. This is the Fisher King. He's wounded, sovereign. The Grail is the ritual remedy for the wounded Fisher King, and the land mirrors the king's condition, of course. And kingship is cosmological, not administrative. Then in Mesoamerica, you have the blood, the maize, and the renewal with Quetzalcoatl. This is the divine blood that animates the maize so that it produces food for humanity, which is renewed through sacrifice. It's the constant cycle of death and rebirth. That is what sustains the world. And this is the idea of the sacred abundance with life restored. The cosmic order is maintained through offering, again, not through conquest, but through offering. So in Christianity, the Grail as the redeemed axis. Christianity doesn't invent the Grail, it transfigures it, beautifully so, as the vessel of Christ's blood. And you have healing through mercy, not ritual. You have restoration without coercion. The Grail becomes grace made portable. I mean, that's a beautiful image. That's awesome. The cosmos healed from within history is how the Christian movement incorporated these symbols and their meanings. So this is the universal pattern across the cultures. They all have renewal myths with various types of symbolisms, but they all agree on these 5 points. The world can become wounded. The wound is tied to moral failure. The renewal requires a sacrifice, a sacred substance or vessel. The access demands worthiness, not strength. And then the healing restored is the cosmic alignment. It's not domination. It's cosmic alignment. The Grail is the Western expression of this ancient myth. And so it's quite fascinating. It's humanity's shared symbol of cosmic renewal, the sacred vessel through which a wounded world is healed when moral integrity realigns heaven, the land, and the king. Because the king represents all the people, the kingdom, right? So that's fascinating. So the ancient renewal pattern, the baseline. Before we judge modern fantasy, now I want to give kind of I want to show you the trajectory that our modern fantasy has taken. There's a baseline. We need a template, as it were, right? So the renewal myth requires all 5 elements. It's a wounded world, moral failure, a sacred substance, an act that heals. There's a worthiness, not power, and it grants access. And then the healing restores the alignment, not the dominance. And then we have the symbols, the Grail, Osiris, Amrita, the Corn King. All this follows this structure. So when J.R.R. Tolkien shows up, and he talks about renewal preserved, but it is deeply costly. It's not just free. There is a price to pay for this. In The Lord of the Rings, Tolkien keeps the pattern almost perfectly, but what he does refuse is cheap restoration. The ring is destroyed, that means the evil is removed, but the land is healed, the Shire and Gondor and the various types of land. The king returns, that's Aragorn, right? But Frodo does not get restored. The quest wounds him, and he keeps those wounds. So here's the key insight. The world can be healed even if the healer cannot stay in it. So Frodo, along with Bilbo and others, have to sail to the Undying Lands to receive his proper healing. The actual world that he saved, he could not stay in. That's fascinating. That is so fascinating. So this is renewal without denial of trauma. Tolkien keeps the Grail logic intact, but it's tragic. That's how he does it. Let's go to George R.R. Martin, who basically is all about renewal that is deliberately rejected. And so this is interesting. In the Game of Thrones, Martin intentionally dismantles the renewal myth in his story. The land does not morally heal. The power replaces worthiness. The throne survives longer than virtue, and suffering produces cynicism, not sanctity. So this is a beautiful comparison. And isn't it interesting that 2 of the most gigantic epic tales of our day, Tolkien's Legendarium and Martin's Game of Thrones, are like heads and tails of a coin. They are beautiful illustrations from opposite sides of this exact myth. That's what makes them so powerful to read. Yeah. In Martin, there is no Grail. There's only debris, ash, dust and ash. The cornucopia, the Celtic horn of plenty, never does arrive. The throne survives longer than virtue. This isn't accidental, because what Martin is arguing is that history does not heal, it only replaces winners. That's the Game of Thrones, right? The result is realism, sure, absolutely. But cosmic flatness, the universe has no moral rhythm. That's very interesting. Now, when you get to Harry Potter, remember, it's a partial renewal, But there's a weakened cosmology here in Harry Potter. Rowling gestures towards renewal, but she narrows it psychologically here. Horcruxes is the fragmented soul. Healing comes through love and self-sacrifice, but the world remains largely unchanged. So Harry survives and society continues. That's true. Trauma is individualized. So this keeps the ethical renewal, but it loses the cosmic renewal. The Grail becomes therapy, not transformation. When we look at the Dark Crystal, the mythic renewal is fully intact. The Dark Crystal is one of the purest modern survivals of the ancient pattern. The world is literally broken in this story. The crystal is cracked. There's your cosmic wound, right? Healing requires reunion, not conquest, and the restoration reunifies all beings. Well, this is it. This is the pre-modern myth wearing modern clothes. It understands that wholeness and not victory is what saves the world. So Miyazaki, renewal through reconciliation. We have Princess Mononoke. Miyazaki preserves renewal, but it reframes it ecologically. The wound is the rupture between humans and nature, right? And the sacred substance is the forest's spirit life. No side is purely evil here. Healing is provisional, it's fragile, but it is ongoing. It is happening. So this is the Grail logic without the triumphalism. The world heals, yet scars remain. So why modern fantasy often loses this ancient pattern? There are three reasons that modern fantasy abandons renewal, which is one of the crucial themes in this ancient pattern. It is the suspicion of transcendence. There's no sacred center allowed in our modern fantasy for whatever reason. I have no idea why. There is a trauma realism. Healing feels dishonest in the modern fantasies, so they don't do it. Or there is an absolute obsession for power, right? Victory is what replaces worthiness, and that's the big one. So when renewal disappears, fantasy becomes cynical history. We have endless conflict, and we have spectacle without any meaning. So the consequence here is when fantasy loses the renewal pattern that was had anciently, it loses the cosmic moral gravity. The stories actually stop asking, how is the world healed? And it starts only asking the question, who wins? But that's the problem. Without the renewal, no one wins. That shift in our modern fantasy is entertainment with costumes. Modern fantasy thrives when it preserves the Grail's renewal pattern, linking the moral worth, the sacrifice, the cosmic healing, and it withers when power replaces restoration as the story's highest goal. So here's how this works. Max Weber named this idea of the modern disenchantment, which is what we're in right now. He says, the modern world treats reality as mechanism, as resource. The world is seen as a system, and it's stripped of intrinsic meaning. And so disenchantment then assumes that nature is neutral matter. It assumes that power is through instruments, swords, guns, bombs, tanks, battleships, nuclear bombs, satellites. Meaning becomes subjective now, and history trends toward mastery, not wisdom. And Tolkien saw this worldview himself personally firsthand. Industrialized England, mechanized war, bureaucratic thinking. And he rejected all of that at the mythic level. Tolkien's first refusal is nature is alive. In modern disenchantment, forests are timber. The Lord of the Rings, forests are persons, the Ents. That's why we all love them. Truly. This is pure genius. Treebeard is not a symbol. He is a moral agent. Fanghorn is slow, ancient, and judging. Isengard is destroyed not by armies, but by awakened nature. This is pre-modern cosmology restored, is what we're seeing in Tolkien. It's why it resonates so powerfully in us. The world responds to moral violation, or at least we should. Modern fantasy often anesthetizes us and nature. Tolkien re-ensouls nature. That's beautiful. Power is always corruptive. It's never neutral. So modernity says power depends on who uses it. Tolkien says power itself bends the will. So the ring cannot be used rightly. It just can't. Even good intentions accelerate corruption of the ring wearer. Mastery is the original sin. This is a direct rejection of modern technocratic optimism. The ring is anti-instrumental philosophy given narrative form. So disenchantment breaks time. That's what Tolkien restores. See, modernity treats time like it's linear, it's consumable, progress-oriented, Tolkien restores layered time where ancient wrongs echo forward, where songs preserve truth better than records do, where the past is alive, it's not obsolete. That's why elves remember. That's why ruins matter. That's why names carry weight. Disenchanted worlds forget. Tolkien worlds remember. Now, healing matters more than winning. Modern narratives, what do they reward? Victory all the time. Tolkien rewards restoration. Frodo does not win psychologically. The Shire is healed, but it's scarred. Evil is removed, that's true, but it's not redeemed by force, and this preserves the Grail renewal pattern without denial of trauma. The modern world says, get over it. Tolkien says, healing has a cost. And finally, Smallness is sacred. Modernity glorifies scale. I want a big truck. I want big tires. Big, 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 big. Scale, magnificence, glory, power. That's what modernity worships. It worships efficiency and dominance, absolutely dominance. But Tolkien centers hobbits, gardeners, meals, songs, hospitality. Cosmic fate turns on ordinary moral faithfulness, not greatness. This is a direct theological rejection of modern heroics. Very interesting. His eucatastrophe, the anti-disenchanted ending, Tolkien's most explicit resistance comes in eucatastrophe, that is, the sudden turn toward grace. It wasn't planned, it wasn't expected, it just blam, it's there. It's not earned, it's not engineered, it's not predictable by any chance. Providence enters after hope fails, is how Tolkien put this. This is the opposite of disenchantment. And why? Because what disenchantment does is it insists only what we control is real. Tolkien says the deepest meaning arrives as gift. Gandalf is the anti-modern guide to all of this. He is the wizard modernity cannot tolerate. He refuses domination. He values mercy over efficiency, and he guides rather than manages. He embodies wisdom without system. That alone makes Tolkien's dangerous to modern assumptions. The core resistance here is Tolkien does not argue against disenchantment, he outgrows it. He rebuilds a world where meaning is objective, where power demands restraint, where nature is morally charged, where healing outranks conquest, where providence is real but never coercive. Middle Earth is not escapism, it is a rehearsal for re-enchantment. Tolkien consciously resisted modern disenchantment by constructing a mythic world where meaning is intrinsic, where power corrupts by nature, where healing actually does matter, more than victory even, and grace enters history as an unearned gift. Two competing stories of legitimacy is what we have here. Ancient myths, the authority is recognized. Power is released by the world. The ruler aligns with a moral cosmic order. Tests cannot be gamed. Success follows worthiness. See, Arthur draws the sword because the world permits it. Modern myth is where authority is earned. Power is acquired through performance. The system is presumed neutral. Tests are competitive and optimizable. Success proves worth. You rule because you won. That's the modernity that Tolkien rejects rightfully. The ancient chosen king is about moral alignment. The modern meritocracy is about skill, intelligence, and effort. The ancient chosen king is about humility and non-grasping. The modern meritocracy is ambition and drive. The ancient chosen king is harmony with order. The modern meritocracy is outperforming rivals. The ancient chosen king is fitness to serve. The modern meritocracy is capacity to dominate. In the ancient pattern, trying too hard disqualifies you. In meritocracy, not trying hard enough does. Failure means different things. The chosen king myth, failure is misalignment. The world resists illegitimate power. Rule collapses naturally. In the meritocracy myth of our day, failure is personal inadequacy, which we rightfully reject, or ought to. The system is never wrong, which we rightfully challenge, or at least we ought to. And it losers internalize blame, which again we should completely reject. This is why meritocracy tends toward moral cruelty. It sanctifies outcomes. And so power's moral status. In the Arthurian myth, power is dangerous by default. In meritocracy, power is morally neutral. The sword in the stone says, if you are not the right person, the sword will not move. Meritocracy says, if you got the sword out, you must be the right person. That single reversal is everything. Tolkien's explicit rejection, he sides decisively with the ancient myth. Aragorn does not campaign for kingship. His sword is reforged, not pulled by force. Kingship is recognized after humility, service, and waiting. Contrast this with the ring. The ring is pure meritocratic power. Anyone strong or clever enough can use it. That is exactly why it destroys. The One Ring is the anti-sword in the stone. And this is why modern stories feel flat. When meritocracy replaces chosenness, the cosmos goes silent. Nature stops judging. Victory replaces virtue, and healing is optional. Stories become about who wins, not whether rule is good. That's why modern fantasy often feels impressive but hollow, because it's lost its way. The deep cost. Meritocracy promises fairness, but it delivers moral loneliness. Chosen king myth insists no one should rule unless the world itself agrees. Meritocracy insists if you rule, the world must accept it. One restrains power, the other rationalizes it. So the sword in the stone myth grounds authority in moral alignment recognized by the cosmos, while modern meritocracy myths ground authority as competitive success. It turns power from a sacred trust into a justified reward the means justify the ends. In the end, these myths are not about swords or kings or magic at all. They're about whether power answers to anything beyond itself. The sword and the stone, the grail, Merlin's timing, Tolkien's re-enchanted world, all insist on the same truth. Authority is not justified by success or strength or cleverness, but by alignment with a moral order that no one controls. Modern meritocracy, our political systems today, tells us that winning proves worth. But ancient myth answers that worth must be recognized before winning can mean anything. When stories forget this, they grow louder for sure, but emptier. They become spectacles of domination without restoration. When they remember it, they become what myth was always been at its best, a reminder that the world itself resists illegitimate power, that healing matters more than victory, and that the true authority arrives not by grasping, but when the time is right and the stone finally lets go. So thanks for watching my Backyard Professor Live. Thanks for your attendance and being here. It's been a lot of fun. It's been interesting. Good way to start the new year. I wish you all the very best. I hope you have a fantastic new year. I will be presenting much more information on a lot of subjects. I'm excited for what this new year can bring us. We can prepare for our future if we start right now, spiritually, physically, and mentally, and psychologically. So that's what we're working on. Appreciate y'all. I hope you have a great night. I'll be back with a lot more just as soon as I can. See you soon.